Payson Method's Intro to Piano Video Tutorials. Episode 4, playing our first piece, Tea Leaves. Tea Leaves is from the book New Classics by Andrew Payson. You can get a free copy of the sheet music at paysonmethod.com. Go to paysonmethod.com and look under free resources. Welcome to Payson Method's Intro to Piano Video Tutorials. In this episode, we're ready to play our first piece of music, Tea Leaves. To begin, let's hear how Tea Leaves sounds. Now let's start at the beginning in treble clef, measure 1. A measure is a little rectangle of music. This is measure 1. Here's measure 2, measure 3, and so on. We will be using our right hand to play treble clef. In measure 1, as you can see, we have notes that are in the spaces in treble clef. Remember, when we're reading music, we always look at where the circle part of the note is. The spaces in treble clef are space, face, F-A-C-E. The first note is in the first space. The circle part of the note is in the first space, so that means it's the note F. It's not just any F on the piano. The F in the first space in treble clef is a little higher than middle C, which is the C closest to the middle of the piano. If you look at the sheet music, you might notice a number 3 above the note F. This number located above the note is called the finger number. It's a suggestion indicating which finger is easiest to play for this note. In piano, we number our fingers 1 through 5, with our thumb being number 1. Thumb is 1. We're looking for our third finger to play this note, 1, 2, 3. So let's play F with our third finger. Now let's look at the next note. Looking at the circle part of this note, it's in the second space in treble clef. Spaces in treble clef are F-A-C-E. So this is the note A. I'm using my pinky to play this note. Now let's look at the third note. As you can see, the third note is the same as the first note because it's also in the first space in treble clef. That means this note is also F. So the first 3 notes are F, A, F. Let's play that slowly. The reason I play the first note a little bit longer than the other 2 is because the first note is a half note. Half notes are worth 2 beats. The other 2 notes are quarter notes, so that means each one is worth 1 beat. So the first 2 notes is 2 beats, 1, 2, and the other are 1 beat each, 3, 4. So the first measure sounds like this when I count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how slowly I'm playing. Playing slowly is very important in practicing piano. On to measure 2. I'm looking where the circle part of each note is. The notes this time are on the lines in treble clef. The lines in treble clef are E, G, B, D, F. This note is on the first line, so it's E. Let's play that note. The next note in this measure is located on the second line. The second line in treble clef is G, so this is the note G. The third note in this measure returns to the first line, therefore the third note is E. This measure sounds like this. Notice that the rhythm is identical to measure 1. The E gets 2 beats, and then the G and the E, which are quarter notes, will each get 1 beat. So everything so far sounds like this. In measure 3, this note goes under the first line in treble clef. We are only using white keys in this piece, and this note is going to be one note lower than E, which is the first line. One note lower than E on the white keys is D, so this is the note D. After this note, you can see the music goes up and it goes to the first line, E. The third note in the measure is located on the first space. This means the third note is F. This measure sounds like this. Now let's take a look at measure 4. This measure may look familiar to you. In fact, it's exactly the same as measure 1. Just like measure 1, the three notes here are F, A, F. Measure 5, you will see, is a repeat of measure 2. The notes are E, G, E. And if you guessed that measure 6 is the same as measure 3, you're exactly right. If you look closely, the music in the first 3 measures makes up a melody. That melody repeats 4 times. Here is the first time you hear it, the second, the third, and the fourth. After the fourth time, there's an extra whole note in the final measure. This note is in the first space in treble clef, which is F. Remember, a whole note is 4 beats, so the ending note sounds longer. Let's hear the entire right hand. Now let's start with the bass clef part. For bass clef, we're going to be using our left hand. The first note in measure 1 is on a line in bass clef. The lines in bass clef are G, B, D, F, A. This note is on the third line, so it's D. The lines in bass clef are all below middle C. This is the D we want. The sheet music is suggesting we use our fourth finger to play this D. Remember, thumb is 1. Let's play D with our fourth finger. In measure 2, this note is on a space. The spaces in bass clef are A, C, E, G. This note is in the second space, so it's C. This is right below the D that we just played. So far we have D and then C. In measure 3, this note is in the top space in bass clef. The spaces in bass clef are A, C, E, G. So this note is G. The top space in bass clef is a little lower than middle C, so it's this G. Let's play the first 3 measures in bass clef. D, C, G. These are all whole notes, so each note is held for 4 beats. D, C, G. Remember how the right hand repeats the first 3 measures? Well, the left hand does the exact same thing. You repeat the left hand 4 times. Here is the first time you hear it, the second, the third, and the fourth. And then the last measure, it ends on D. At this point, I recommend playing each hand separately over and over. Play the right hand, then play the left hand, then do it all over again and again. Hand separate slow is the most important thing you can do in practicing piano. If you're not sure what to do, play hand separate slow. It's always helpful. After practicing hand separate, we're ready to start hands together. That means we will be playing both the left hand and the right hand parts at the same time. The most important thing to realize when starting hands together is that when notes line up vertically on your score, that means you play the notes at the same time. In measure 1, the note D in bass clef lines up with the F in treble clef. Let's play D and F together. Next, while still holding that D in your left hand, we'll play the next quarter notes in the right hand. So the first measure sounds like this. Now let's continue. In measure 2, you have C in the left hand and it's lining up with E in the right hand. Let's play C and E together. Just like in measure 1, we want to hold the note in the left hand and play the next 2 quarter notes in the right hand. Here are the first 2 measures hands together. On to measure 3. G in the left hand lines up with D in the right hand. Here is G and D together. Then we play the next notes in the right hand while holding D in the left hand. Measure 3 sounds like this. Here are the first 3 measures hands together. Even after we start playing hands together, we always return to hands separate, slow. If you don't know what to do, play hands separate, slow. It's always helpful. Now that we know the first 3 measures hands together, we should be able to play the entire piece except for the final measure. If we look at the last measure, the notes are D in the left hand and F in the right hand. That sounds like this. Here is all of Tea Leaves hands together. Just because we played it once does not mean we're done practicing. Keep playing. In general, play slowly a lot, and while practicing hands together, occasionally return to hands separate, slow. Tea Leaves is from the book New Classics by Andrew Payson. You can get a free copy of the sheet music at paysonmethod.com. Go to paysonmethod.com and look under free resources. Payson Method teaches creativity.